Yeah, Aggretsuko! Did you watch season 1 and 2? Well, season 3
was alright. It was more than I anticipated, yet left me wanting more than it had. But it's still a great show, as many of you know.
And let me tell you why.
This show hits hard each season, and this one is no exception. It expands on the characters with subtle moments and brief cameos, and despite the small amount of screen time each person seems to get, or at least the side characters, they don't feel out of place. It's a weird feeling that's distinct from the other seasons, and I'll try to put it into words. Let's start with what I think the season did well. This season was more character-driven than ever, and it starts practically right away. Retusko already seems a tiny bit wiser than previous seasons, but also the same in that she hasn't learned how to adult. Then again, who has, right? I certainly haven't. Retusko now has a virtual boyfriend and a not legally Oculus Rift, and she blows through a lot of her savings on said virtual unicorn boyfriend, which I don't blame her for. Look at him, he's hot, marry me! And this sets into motion the whole theme or arc of the season. I'm going to agree here with one of Polygon's articles on this show. It's more astray from the first two seasons' more office-centered drama/comedy, which I think is a good idea to change up for the impact on the story. Retsuko, through her new driving skills, crashes her car, minorly, fender bender, into a music producer's van, gets involved with an underground girl idol group, OTM Girls, OTM Girls, I'm remembering that now in the future, this is future me, hello, it's OTM Girls. To pay off the debt that she owes for the car damage, she basically becomes their band financial manager and later part band member. This work/singer/band finance manager balance puts a strain on her sanity and also her sleeping and therefore her work performance. But also shows her a way to finally get recognized for singing metal outside the karaoke booth. And the singer group manager is voiced by ProZD, which is a big check in my accounting book. But this lifestyle has its fair share of risks that lead to the pivotal moment for the fans. You know where I'm going with this one, and that's why I need to mention Haida and all the little stories in this season that make it work. Haida continues his very prolonged indecisiveness of whether or not to commit to his practically predestined waifu, and this is the season that puts that into question, finally. And it's through the introduction of yet another character with little screen time that has become a fandom favorite if all the fanart is to be believed, Inui. It makes the choice of which is actually the better partner for him surprisingly realistic. And it also makes Retsuko seem like a less stable person in a lot of regards, let's face it. But if you just committed to her earlier Haida, you would have prevented a lot of headache. Other characters that are more or less side characters for the plot's sake really got a lot more development too. Washimi and Gori were really well written in the last season, but seeing their more vulnerable and ambitious moments this time around made them seem much more real. There's brief appearances of Anai and how he has a girlfriend and how he has a successful book based off of his blogging time. This season excels in, even at a glance, having each character be more important, but I think it's one of the negatives too. The focus is primarily on Retsuko and the OTM girls, and too much shuffling around of the metaphorical actors on stage can be a bit too padding out. I grew a tad bored midway, more than previous seasons, but it helps the key moments feel all the more notable, like how Tadano helps Haida realize he doesn't know much about Retsuko at all, or how Retsuko doesn't know how to deal with the popularity that comes with her singing. What I'm trying to say is that this season focuses on characters' introspection, which makes the pacing a bit wonky, to be honest. Especially near the end, which I won't spoil, but it feels like the ending 2 episodes, or even the last episode, could have been stretched out a bit more for, I guess, more digestible or better paced plot. It seems like the writing was rushed, which sort of diminishes the last gut punch. I don't have proof it was rushed, mind you, but it's just the way it feels watching it. There's a lot of mini payoffs for individual setup, and it makes a slow build to the climax worthwhile, and makes a shift back to normal expected, but still a bit jarring. I kinda wish there was a little more going on in the middle. Did someone say critique of idol culture? Now, of course, this isn't the only thing on tap, but it's the biggest one. I'd actually say there's 3. Idol, relationship commitment, and work-life balance. The work-life isn't new, but it's kind of a little more highlighted here. Idol life is basically shown more bluntly than most shows. Even Zombie Idol shows the hardships of being a performer, but Aggretsuko shows even less the glamorous times. It's more about the moments or days between the concerts and the cash it takes to actually run such a group. How you can't quit your day job even if you're mildly famous. This isn't even going into the hell I can imagine K-pop groups live in. It's quite the refreshing down-to-earth take that I think that only Aggretsuko can pull off well. This season also retouches on relationships, both at work and at the heart, but also remarks on the weight and the predating phase and how that can be just as important as the dating phase, if not the breakup phase. Haida is the side of, at least in my opinion, all that can be from inexperience in dating, the pre-date side. It can sometimes be a leap of faith, and that can be scary for those who haven't had a real relationship yet. At least I don't think he has. It hasn't really been the lore, at least I haven't read that far. Tadano shows a glimpse of the post-dating side and the solemn understanding that can come with it. And of course, the work-life balance that can be so easily tipped to either side. I heavily relate to Retsuko's struggle to do the day job and handle the night job or passion project. I'm talking about the ending because of not only its narrative importance, but because I got beef. If you haven't watched the show and want to go in proper or blind, skip to the time code on screen here. Retsuko gets caught up in the fame of the OTM girls of being an idol and gets a stalker. Yay! She almost gets stabbed, but Haida stops the attacker. Inui, who has been trying to get close to Haida and actually likes him, bandages him up. It's just his hand, it's like a small cut, but it's like a meaningful kind of scene, and calls an ambulance for Retsuko. Haida finally chooses Retsuko in a touching but heartbreaking scene. How did Haida finally make his choice? From the dating app of Gori's side gig that was influenced by some sneaky coding from Tadano. Feneko, in her own way and after her own small character arc, provided her own harsh advice in a really poignant and actually very emotional scene. It lasts like 3 seconds in the repeat restaurant that they've gone to, but at least to me, it acknowledges 2 seasons in one simple sentence or two. It's actually really good writing. But it doesn't mean Retsuko has chosen Haida yet. He has to get her out of the funk of the post-attack, which I do not blame her for having, and she has to get back to work before she gets fired. So how does he do this? In a karaoke battle! That is shorter than what I was hoping. It is, of course, in the karaoke booth that Retsuko has been using all show, where she vents her frustrations, but now it's taken on a more important role as the proving ground and true climax space for Haida and Retsuko. Not that kind. Retsuko thinks Haida is projecting his feelings, and he very well may be, but he reaches out anyway, after saying that he will stick with her, fight the world back with her in a really awesome scene of like cool animation and chaos. It's back to the office again, and everything is normal. Excuse me? That's it? I have such mixed feelings on this, and I'm sure you do too, and only after chatting with Sarcastic Cuddles, who is very knowledgeable on anime, and there's a link to his channel in the description, please go check him out, he is amazing. I think I know how to phrase it. Season 3 set out with the impression of a bigger goal. Things always seemed like they would lead up to an end or something big, and they didn't. It framed Haida and Retsuko's situation and brought it to a head only to go back to normal at the very end. It rings hollow, is what I'm saying. Now, compared to Season 2, where a lot does happen, including Retsuko putting into words that she wants to marry and settle down after Gori, Washimi, and Haida kidnap Tadano for the karaoke room and do the whole climax there, this season was faster paced and gave no real impression of a big goal until halfway, and even then, the payoff was at least satisfying and conclusive. Maybe it's the narrative approach, but Season 3 is both too focused and not focused enough. And that isn't even commenting on if there's going to be a Season 4, and if Haida and Retsuko are actually dating or not. I agree with Sarcastic Cuddles in that they're not a good pair at all, but maybe that's the point. Both are nervous wrecks, and I wouldn't put it past this production company to make the next season about the struggles of dating in a chaotic relationship. I'm sure you have your own thoughts. Hit me up with those comments. I want to see what y'all think, but it did have a nice way of tying up all the loose ends at once in this one season, so more self-contained, kudos to that. Now, I said this show is good, and despite my dogging on it, I still highly recommend to watch. Here's some highlights of things I love from the show. The gradual camaraderie of the OTM girls and Retsuko that shows friendship overtakes fame and ultimately work. We see the girls as normal people who have to balance their day job and nighttime side gig. The guinea pig girls are adorable in the group and so innocent, lovely. Speaking of, the lead singer of OTM is such a good character. She starts off like a stuck-up brat, or at least looking like one, but turns into a hard worker in both jobs that she has, and she has a heart under her tough demeanor. She is one of my favorite characters this season, along with Haida, who finally gets some actual character development. He's been the coworker crusher for 2 seasons. For 2 seasons! And he doesn't necessarily get complex, but at least he has a little more depth. Komiya runs a blog about bands and musical acts. Yeah, I guess he's more than a suck-up. The on-point critique of fan culture and how supportive and toxic it can be, how some of the biggest fans of the OTM girls become part of the crew is great, and how the crowd is daunting and a blessing at the best of times. Hot unicorn boyfriend, make this happen. And finally, how with enough time and effort, you can turn a side gig or a passion into something fun and maybe profitable. You gotta push it, you gotta put the effort and heart into it. It takes time, but you know what? It's gonna work. You're gonna make it work. In plain terms, the show and season are good. I still think season 1 and 2 are better, but season 3 is still solid in its premise and fumbles its execution only enough to muddle its pacing. The characters are well written and the topic is, well, topical. It's the same blunt but subtly witty approach that this show is known for, and I hope we do get a season 4, if not to have a more proper, more definite ending. But if we don't get a season 4, then this show phrased its impact best with this last season. Like a sea urchin in the desert. Something unexpected. An odd tonal shift that makes this season stand out from the others in a way that will stick with you. Also, Haida, you had a good match with Inui. Those dating apps. Inui is more stable than Retusko in so many ways. You had a gold ticket, bro. Why did you...